You're listening to the Empowering Process podcast with your host, Gail Kraft. Listen as she holds frank discussions around how your purpose, being present, and trusting your power impacts your life. Whether you're an entrepreneur, leader, or developing your vision, you'll find wisdom and insights you can utilize right now. Welcome your host, Gail Kraft.
Well, hello, everybody. Gail Kraft here with Sabrina Victoria. And we should call her Sabrina Victorious, right? And this is the Empowering Process podcast. And Sabrina is joining me to have a conversation around a subject that I think I've covered a few times, but her take is very empowering and her take is very enlightening. And it's about how do we find ourselves involved with people who are narcissistic? For me, I was even in an organization that was narcissistic, right? What is it in us that has happened that finds us in that situation? And Sabrina is going to share what it's like to be in that kind of relationship for over 13 years, and then
Yeah.
how you woke up, why you woke up, and what you had to go through to become the amazing woman you are now and the leader for so many more. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the broadcast too.
Yeah.
Welcome, Sabrina.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you giving me the space and the time, right? Our most valuable thing. So a smidge about my background. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. Everything was pretty good until I wound up being boy crazy, as most teens do get. Around 20 years old, I ended up pregnant with no husband, emphasis on the no husband part. And within a few, I guess, well, ended up with pregnant with no husband. And because of that, my entire family and my entire religion or community disassociated from me. It's called disfellowshipping within that organization. Basically means they cut off all communication with you.
And I do want to stop for a second here because some of us, you hear the word ghosting happens. The word that comes to mind for me, and it's the most severe thing that you can do to any human being, and that's called shunning.
Yes. Oh,
right?
yeah,
Yes.
definitely. Yeah.
To be, I mean, your very breath, your livelihood is shut off from you when
Yeah.
you most need it.
Yeah. And actually, you're right. It is very much like shunning. When you think of shunning, you think of somebody just kind of turning their shoulder to you. And that's kind of what they do. You know, you're still obligated to continue to go to the meetings if you want to be brought back in or reinstated. So when you go in, nobody looks at you, nobody acknowledges you, nobody talks to you. You sit in the back. You have to like observe the entire meeting or church, lecture or sermon. And nobody even makes eye contact with you. I mean, it is incredibly disheartening on multiple levels, emotionally, emotionally. And then I'm pregnant while this is happening. So it's a lot. But I wound up having the baby and I led the stereotypical single mom life with no child support. So baby daddy wound up exiting the relationship. And I am rummaging around the world with a baby and no money. So negative money in my account at any given time, car getting repoed out of the parking lot, eviction notices on my apartment door, suicidal thoughts, dealing with postpartum, which that's insane. And somehow maneuvered through that for about a year and a half or so until I met a man. And
You're a savior.
Yes, my savior. I was the maiden in distress. I had no money and no self-esteem. I'm a single mom. I'm in darkness. And yeah, he came with with a white horse. And he's like, don't worry about your rent. Come live with me. I will pay all of your bills. Just take care of the house. And don't worry about your ridiculous job that's not paying you anything. Come work for me and build an empire with me. And, oh, you can't pay your phone bill because I'm not paying you anything. Don't worry about your phone bill. Come onto my phone bill and I will own your phone and pay your bill for you. And same with the car and same with the computer. And basically, I looked around within a few years later and I have nothing. I own nothing. I have nothing. And therefore, when you have nothing and own nothing, you have no voice. You have no power. You have no confidence. You have no self esteem. The mental abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse got worse and worse and worse over the years. And then 8 years in, took 8 years for me to be enlightened, I guess.
So let's talk a little bit about some of that kind of abuse. So so I was married to a gentleman, and I've got 2 marriages under my belt, but we're going to talk about the one that I was completely unaware and unprepared for. Um, and his family would tell me he is perfect. He can do no wrong.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right. And meanwhile, I'm at home. When I was working, so do before but I had the baby and was home with nothing, right? But even when I was working, I would go to our bank account because it was a joint account. We were married, everything's joint, and there'd be money out because he wanted to take some people out for dinner. I'm like, well, wait a minute, we got bills to pay,
Yeah.
right? What do you mean we're going out to this expensive dinner? What do you mean? What do you mean you're buying me a leather coat? The day I had the baby, our child, when he picked me up at the hospital, he showed up with a leather coat. Now I had no job. He wasn't making a lot of money. We were barely making ends meet, and he bought me a leather coat
Oh,
and didn't understand how I was like, what is this? Right. And it got to the point where he wasn't coming home. He was spending the money. He had to go and pay the bar bill to cash his check, right? And this is the mental abuse, and I was out of my mind,
yeah.
right? Out of my mind, and I had to start to keep track because I was lazy. I was fat. I was ugly. I was not a good wife. I was not a good mother. I was just awful, awful. And so I started keeping a calendar because I thought I was going insane, and I was. So let's go into some
Wait,
of
a
those.
calendar of what? Like a journal?
I kept a journal of, what time he came home, what did he ask for,
Yes.
what did we talk about, right? Um, and so when I did file for divorce, I did go on emotional abuse because I had the calendar. And that wasn't my intention. My intention was to see if I was insane or not.
Wow.
Yes.
See, that was one of the things I used too. I used like a little journal. I would do
Yep.
like 1-page little scripts of just the bull crap that happened that day.
Yeah.
Because of that, you feel like you're going insane.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I am that. I am lazy. And years and years later, I adored his brother and sister-in-law. And she had said to me, "You could eat off of your kitchen floor." Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It was inhibiting to go to your house. It was that clean. And
Yeah.
I was terrible. I was a terrible housekeeper,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. And I
Same.
believed it. And I literally on my hands and knees scrubbing the floors every
Yep.
other day.
Yep.
Right? So let's talk about some of the specifics about what you felt, what you experienced before you woke up after 8 years.
Yeah. One of the stories that I love to tell because it happened early on, when you talk about narcissism, one of the questions that you get a lot is like, when did you know? And I knew literally within days that this was not healthy, right? I didn't know about narcissism. I didn't know
Right.
toxicity,
Right.
but like I knew this was not a good guy.
Right.
But early on, probably within 4 months, he had opened up an office, a little tiny office, and we were getting everything ready and putting the furniture together and getting it all spiffed up and plants and a little fish tank and the desks and the phones. And it probably took us like a week to put the whole thing together, day and night, at me after I was working at that time in a regular job still. And so we had finished up one of the offices. It was all done. And he's like, hey, can you vacuum for me? I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. I'll vacuum. So I vacuumed, put the vacuum back in the closet. He goes into the room to go put something away. And he's like, whoa, 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 whoa. You vacuumed the wrong way. Yeah. So he's like, you need to vacuum this way, not that way. And I was like, what's the difference? It's clean. Like you're walking in and out. There's footprints anyways. He's like, everybody knows that you vacuum the long way of the room or the short way of the room. So it looks longer, whatever his view. I don't even remember anymore. And I was like, I'm not vacuuming again. Like I'm doing this other thing. I was already in on another project. And he's like, are you serious? All the food that I buy you, all the things that I've done for you so far. And all I'm doing is asking you just to re-vacuum a little tiny office and you can't do that little tiny thing for me. Are you serious? I'll just do it myself. So again, that like victim,
Oh, right. And now you feel guilty.
guilt, shame. Yeah.
Yeah.
So of course I'm like naive. I don't even know. So that all those feelings come up and I'm like, fine, I drop what I'm doing. And I grab the vacuum, all angry. I grab the vacuum out of the thing and we're past each other in the hallway. And I purposely, I admit this now, I didn't admit this to him at the time, but when we were passing in the hallway, I allowed one of my shoulders to hit his shoulder. Yeah, to kind of like F you. He, within a quarter of a second, pinned me against the wall, like super hard. My head hit the back of it. And he goes, if you want this to turn into an aggressive physical relationship, we can do that. You hit first. And I was like nothing like that had ever happened to me ever before. I immediately started like not crying, but like tears welling up in my eyes and like falling from my face. And he goes, you start it, I'll finish it. Like very. So I vacuumed, but that was within like 3 or 4 months in. This is like that much like power and aggression, and you do what I say, and there's no, gray lines. And I knew, and I just kept going back.
Right. Well, so for me, there was also infidelity, and the infidelity started at 3 months within the marriage. Now he didn't um, cheat on me then, but he was flirting, and I found out. And our argument, our discussion, if you will, ended with me saying, "If this is happening 3 months in, why am I staying?"
Yeah.
Right? And he's like, "No, no, it'll never happen again. I just honestly, I really, I love you, I love you, love you." But later in the marriage, when he was cheating on me, um, he said, "Well, there might be someone better than you out there for me."
Ooh,
Whoa, what do you do with that information? Because yes, there is always someone better.
always. That's the
Always.
yeah.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
some area.
yeah, yeah. So it took me a while to get the gumption to end it, because it's very scary to be, you just came from being out on your own without, with the eviction notice on the door,
Yep.
and now you're in a situation where you have nothing. And what are you thinking? The goddamn eviction notice is going to be on the door again,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. That's how they
Right?
get you. Yep.
Yeah. So what was your wake up call, and then what happened?
It was 8 years in.
Hmm.
I was having a total mental breakdown. For those of you that have been in narcissistic relationships who are listening, most know about this, where there's just a point where you just break and
Right.
you're crying and screaming and yelling and tearing and breaking, and all of your soul is like on the ground and you just can't even function as an adult. Um, that kind of just mental break. I was in the bathroom in the dark on the floor, just acting like a complete psycho, just every sound that could possibly come out of me, just yelling out of me, and just despair and bawling my eyes out. And I took out my phone with my eyes all glistened over. I couldn't even see anything. And I Googled, I always say Google saved my life. I Googled, why is my boyfriend bullying me? Because I didn't know any other vernacular other than that. And the whole world of narcissism, toxic relationships, codependency, empathy, financial abuse just hit me right in the face. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's not me.
Google saw me.
Yes, yes. So, one of the real big awakenings that has occurred over the course of years since then is just, it isn't just them. It isn't like they're the bad ones and they're the bad guys.
Right.
We also have stuff wrong with us. That's how we ended up in that situation.
Exactly.
So we have to work on ourselves. We have to work on our own boundaries and our own voice and our own finances, our own money, our own power. So I just dove headfirst into personal development on how to do me better. What am I missing? What is going on? Why is this okay? And opened up a secret bank account, opened up a secret storage unit. I started 3 online secret businesses. And over the course of 4 years, it took a very long time. I was able to collect 50 grand, which to me was like $1 million. And I walked away. I walked away with my son, not his son, my son, our clothes, my bicycle, and started over again with a mattress on the floor. And yeah, never worked for anybody since. I've been growing my power, been growing my businesses, been growing my, financial independence, my confidence ever since.
Yeah. And so the key here is that your escape doesn't happen overnight.
No.
You had a plan. Now for me, I wouldn't say I had a plan. But here's how my life goes. This is how I do things, right? And with everything, like I've got a billion books coming out this year, but I've been thinking about them for like 5 years, and now poof, they're coming out. So it looks like but it's not. So I thought about um, leaving him. I thought about what that would look like. I thought about how the hell would I do this thing. Um, he and I went to a counselor where he walked out angry, and the counselor, by the way, which was through the Roman Catholic Church, said to me, "You've got to get out of this." I walked out of that with my mouth wide open. The Roman Catholic Church is telling me to leave. What? Yes,
Yeah. Wow.
yes, yes. Um, and so I had to really like wrestle with that. What does that mean? What does that look like? So when the time happened, for me, he came home late one night after being, hanging out at the bar, and it's about 9 o'clock at night. The baby was asleep, and I had had dinner, cleaned up, put it away. And he's like, "Where's dinner?" And it's in the fridge. I've already eaten. And we got into an argument, and he raised his hand. Now he's not touched me since,
Yeah.
up to this point.
Yeah.
And I call it my FU stance, which, a few times in my life, those have been turning points in my life. I got into that stance and I went, "Go ahead." And he stopped and I said, "You can now pack your bags and leave." He goes, "I don't know where to go." I said, "Not my problem. Go to your mother's, go to your friends, go sleep in the car. Not my problem." And within a week, I had the apartment packed up and I was moving to a small roach infested a place and was on welfare,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Because I had no plan. I knew I was going to do this, but I had no plan. But I got everything set. And within 3 months, I was working at a very good job and off of welfare,
Yeah.
right? But your your wake up call sometimes happens before you actually take action,
Yeah.
because you have to get your arms around what does this look like,
Yeah.
right? And so for you took action while you were
Yeah.
formulating your
Yeah.
plan.
I
I was formulating what does that look like and then took action. But you still have to like emotionally, physically, mentally grapple with what mistake have I made?
Yeah.
And then how do I move on?
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely. And I think there's also a big difference between when you're feeling like it's curving into physical or violence and not, like I also was the same. Like there was never any physical abuse. That's why I didn't know that I was being abused, because
Right.
he would say that. He would brag about that. He'd be like, "You're acting like I hate you. You're acting like
Right.
I smacked you." Like as if he's supposed to get a gold star. But
Right. 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 I mean, we would go to the local bar where he hung out. I can remember this so clearly. One time, this isn't, I was pregnant. He didn't know I was pregnant. And I wasn't sure. And we were playing a game with, another couple, and, they lost and I won. And so they had to buy us drinks. Right. So I was sitting with this guy that I just met, and he starts telling me about how wonderful he thinks I am, and he doesn't understand my husband. And the story about his sister, whose husband is cheating on him, and what a horrible life she has, and he was mixing me and her in this story, and I'm like, he's telling me all of this stuff going on that I've been, and I knew, but I wouldn't admit.
Yeah.
And I went into the bathroom and threw up till I was sober again.
Wow.
Right. And that was like, I think the beginning of the end. I knew I wasn't going to tell him I was pregnant. I was going to go have the baby without him. Um, and he begged it to stay. And this is it. I mean, he begged, he begged. When I left, I got, well, this is just temporary. We're going to get back together. No,
Yeah.
this time it's the real deal. Right.
Yeah.
And so where does that bravery come from?
Mhm.
Right. You know, um, I know for me, it was desperation for my daughter. I didn't want her to think this was normal.
Yeah.
I didn't
That
want,
that was me
yeah,
too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
My son was hitting teen years and I was like, same, didn't want to think it was normal. Also, I didn't know what that would look like, two testosterones in the world. And I'm so glad I didn't, because my son is like 6'2", like built, he works out every day. Not that he's aggressive, but he's like a boy. He's like manly.
yeah,
Um,
huh?
so like that would have been horrible, a horrible dynamic for him to grow up in.
Yeah, yeah, because they would have gotten physical,
Yeah. Yes.
right? And so now you are the founder of Better Human 365 and so much more. So tell us a little bit about what that's all about. And you also have a sobriety arm that you're working with. So we didn't even go down that arm, that leg about, w- let's do that. Let's just kind of touch on that a little bit. So at what point did you start coping with alcoholism?
So my story is actually a little bit different. I've been sober now for 17 years, 18 years maybe. Um, so my abuser was using alcohol to low key rape, sexual coerce, however you want to put that. Basically get me so wasted right at the cusp of like, do whatever you want to my body, but still being semi-functional. And I would wake up in the morning just bruised and like blood and just horrendous. And I'd be crying sometimes. I'd be in the bathroom and I'd be like mortified at the room, at my body, whatever. And I would tell him, like, I am not okay with this. Like, this is not something that I want to be doing. And he'd use it against me, like, you were wasted, and yes, and you wanted it, and you were begging for it, and I was not blackout drunk, but this happened like 50 times over the course of like a year. And then finally I was just like, I have to do something to stop this insanity, because he just kept saying it was me and it was my fault. And I was asking for it. So one Saturday, I don't even know what was going on. The main thing we would do is I'd go to his place and he would hand me a huge, big gulp glass of rum and Coke, emphasis on the rum. So like rum, as ridiculous as that sounds, and then like Coke. Yeah. So, like, hello, I'm like a little 5'5", little tiny thing, like way smaller than I am now. And so as I went over, it was a Saturday, he handed me my normal and I just said, no, thanks. Like, I don't really want to drink today. No, thanks. And he actually didn't say anything. He was actually totally fine with it. He just took it and he drank it or started to sip on it. And we just went about our day. We went to a club, we went dancing, we, were out with friends. And I woke up in the morning and I felt amazing. I felt great. I didn't have a hangover. I was being a good mom, because usually in the morning I was just being a shitty mom because I'm like suffering from a hangover. I have a headache. Like I can't even function as a parent. So anyways, I did it again the next weekend. I did it again the next weekend. I did it again. And then I have a month sober, which I didn't even know was sober. I just thought, like, I don't drink. I wasn't trying to be sober. I was trying to not get raped. So anyways, yeah. And then 6 months in, and it got difficult because I'm dealing with this man who's just insane. So, the feelings of wanting to numb, the feelings of wanting to leave my body, the feelings of like, let me just drink my sorrows away because it's just so heavy. So I went through this whole cycle, probably over 2 years, of wanting to drink, but like not drinking because of the ego of how much time I had. And then once I had 2 years, I'm like, I don't even want to go back. So yes, when I met my fiance went through an actual program, detox, rehab, sober, AA. So when I met him, I told him, I don't even know how many years I was then, 12 years or something. He thought I was in AA. And I was like, no, I actually did it all by myself. Like, just like gritting through the wanting to drink, but then not drinking. But it's like, because
I want sober more than rape.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So anyways, he invited me to the world of AA, and I'm just business minded in general. That's just how my mind works. And I saw just this whole realm of sober people who need some help finding their identity out of, one of the things that I just didn't appreciate about AA is that I am an alcoholic. My name is I am an alcoholic, and identifying as that. And that, like, anything you identify with an I am statement is the most powerful thing you could possibly say. And that's what these people are saying
They're anchoring it in. They anchor it in every meeting.
And you like, if you don't, like, I wouldn't even speak at those meetings because everybody, before you speak or make a comment during the open forum part, people say, I am blank. I'm an alcoholic. This is how I feel. This is how I'm feeling today. And then they talk. So I never even really rose my hand because I did it one time where I was like, my name is Sabrina. I'm an alcoholic. And I literally felt like I was going to throw up. This is what they're doing to these people. So I'm like, screw this. This is all wrong. It's like, there's so much science behind this thing that they're still doing from the 1930s.
Right. It's time to revamp your program, babe.
Yeah. So anyways, I created an entire program off of my company, Human Better 365, a very similar curriculum, and made a sober curriculum, all about prevention and, not relapsing, and, different exercises, meditations and stuff that you can do when you're feeling the urges. And yeah, so we have a whole community of sober individuals. We have a curriculum that's either in person or through workbook or through a program, video program. And it's growing. It's a beautiful community.
Awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic. So I have many friends who are no longer alcoholics, and they no longer identify with it, and that's the key. So when we talk about addictions and dependency, and honestly, guys, if you're involved in a narcissistic relationship, you probably also have addictive behaviors, right? Because you're addicted to the narcissist, you're addicted to that relationship. So my addiction was smoking, right? And I was a closet smoker.
Ooh.
Yes, right. And when I decided to really quit, because I quit many times, big deal,
Yeah.
right? But then would start again. I can remember deciding to go cold turkey on my own. And yes, I did have withdrawals. Um, but it only took about 3 days for me to not be insane. And I did that on purpose because here's the deal. If I ever smoke again, I will never quit because I will never go through that again. So
Ooh,
because I never want to go through that again, I will never start.
there you go.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so that was, I did it on purpose, knowing that I was not going to like the experience I was about to have.
Yeah.
Right. And I haven't, and the thought of having one, and so we'll do a little NLP discussion here. The thought of having that is something I can't even envision anymore. I
Yeah.
can't even feel. And that's what you're talking about. By anchoring it in, you envision it still.
Yeah.
You're still identifying with that person who you no longer are.
Yeah.
Right. You don't want to identify with who you were. Right. And that's one of the reasons when I work with clients, we don't go into the trauma anymore. That's who you were. Let's heal who you are.
Yeah.
Right. That's
Yeah.
that's the past. Let's leave it there.
Yeah.
Right. And embrace the moment. And so let's explore the moment, not the past. Right. And so, with the NLP, what I'm talking about is when you have an experience, and this is something that, you guys could try that is so foreign to you now. You can take an experience that you want to, a behavior you want to change, and overlay that old experience that you no longer associate with it, and overlay it on the experience you want to diminish. And
Well,
you can diminish that experience,
yep.
right? To the point where it is where the smoking is, right? So that's what you want to do. You want to diminish the experience, get the gift, get the lesson. You want to hang on to, why did I go through this? Why did you go through this, Sabrina? You went through this so that you can be the woman that you are today, right? The gifts that you bring to the world, you probably would not have brought to the world if you didn't experience what you experience. I mean, I can't say yes or no. I said to say probably, right? And the universal law of polarity will tell us that you have to have the dark to know that you're in the light,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Right. And so we've gone through the dark. We don't have to go there again, as everyone else. If you've gone through the dark, you don't have to go there again.
Yeah.
Live in the light, live in the joy, live in
Yeah.
the healing, live in the heart, right?
Yeah.
And so that is beautiful because you're right. Um, I have a friend who no longer does AA, and she said to me, they tell you, they manage you through fear. They will say, your alcohol, your drunk you is out there in the parking lot waiting for you. She goes, holy crap, I don't want to go in the parking lot. I'm waiting for me out there.
Yeah.
Right? Why would you say that?
Yeah.
Whoa. Motivation through fear
Yeah.
doesn't really work that well. So those who've gone through that program, and thousands of people have survived
Yeah.
and are clean.
Yeah.
That's not the tactic that made you clean,
Exactly.
right? There's a piece that you got out of that got you there. This other tactic you got there in spite of, right? Because those other things that are going on in those meetings are just trying to anchor you in, and they don't realize it.
They don't.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. They don't realize it. So if people want to get to know more about you, like I do, they get in touch with you, Sabrina.
So my main website is sabrinavictoria.com. And that has all the other awesomeness that I am doing in my world as far as my companies and sobriety and my women's group. And then on social media, I'm Sabrina VTV. Sabrina VTV. Yeah. Everyone. Sorry. um Facebook. I hang out predominantly on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Yes, and all of this information will be in the show notes so people can, just kind of look for it and click on it and get to know you
Yeah.
as I do. And she's, definitely get to know Sabrina. And this is Gail Kraft from the Empowering Process podcast. And I want to thank you, Sabrina, for sharing your story with me. I know that you've shared it before, but I love this different twist on it. And if this really has brought something up for you, please do share it in the notes. Even if you want to have a discussion around our perspective on AA, that's fine. It'd be great to have that kind of conversation. And if you know someone who actually could benefit from this, do share it out to them. Like us and subscribe so that you know what else is coming up. Gail Kraft, the Empowering Process podcast. Thank you, Sabrina.
Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailcraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.